I mean, there's been a couple of stories. I think people have seen them about ICE agents. But basically, they're loving it right now because under the Obama administration, they were basically shackled. In fact, I think there have been some spokespeople who have said they've unshackled ICE agents. You remember when they unshackled people in those people who are holding prisoners in Iraq, right? They unshackled them. We saw what happened there. In Virginia, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents waited outside a church shelter where undocumented immigrants had gone to stay warm. In Texas and in Colorado, agents went into courthouses looking for foreigners who had arrived for hearings on other matters. At Kennedy International Airport, passengers, and this is, passengers arriving after a 5-hour flight from San Francisco, still in the United States, were asked to show their documents before they were allowed to get off the plane. I've done some reading on this, and from what I've read, that's not kosher. ICE agents do have the ability, and customs officials do have the ability to ask for documentation of people coming from a flight outside of the country. But on a domestic flight, you don't have the ability to do that. They need a warrant. So if anybody asks you for your papers as you're disembarking a plane, tell them to suck it. Or you can just say politely, no.
And suck it.
Gone are, this is from the New York Times, the Obama-era rules that required ICE agents to focus only on serious criminals. In other words, as you know, during the Obama administration, which did deport a record number of people, records, of course, are there to be broken. But what they did do was say to ICE agents, only serious felons, not misdemeanors, not past felony convictions that may not be violent. And I'll get to an example of that in a moment. Before, we used to be told you can't arrest those people, and we'd be disciplined for being insubordinate if we did, said a 10-year veteran of the agency who took part in the operation. Now those people are priorities again, and there's a lot of them here.
These guys are sociopaths.
So, in other words, ICE agents are excited because they get softer targets. Right? You don't have to go after...
Think of how much easier it is to do this.
Of course. You don't have to go after the violent criminals. You can go after the guy who had a parking ticket. You can go after the guy who had a DUI. You
can go after the
10 years ago.
woman, apparently, who was walking out of court. They're filing a restraining order against an abusive boyfriend.
Yep.
And this is...
And they lied about this.
And they lied.
And they
That's
said
right.
that they had got her outside the courthouse when she got onto public ground. But in fact, there's video of 2 ICE agents in a waiting room waiting for her to get out of court. They physically grabbed her as she walked out of the court. They walked her out of the courthouse. Was this in Utah, I think it was?
Yeah.
And walked her across the plaza and then put her in a car.
And and of course, who tipped them off?
It was the domestic abuser.
The guy who abused her. And I think, and I listened to a lawyer, I will give to Raygun on his podcast, and he said, this is a really hard thing because you tell people that you're dealing with, like, if you think you're in physical danger, even if there's a problem with some of your paperwork, I can't tell you to not. The number one priority is if you're dealing with it, you got to go protect yourself. So what does this add to that? It's disgusting.
Not to mention, if you're aware that a crime has been committed, do you want to go report it? Are you aware
That's out the window. That's out the window. I mean, if you talk, of course you're going to look the other way on every. Why would you even think about reporting something now?
You're a nanny, and you are aware that one of the children's being abused by a parent or something, are you going to go to the officials now and tell? Of course not.
No, I wonder what the priority of this administration is, the nanny or the abusive parents. There might be some empathy for the abusive parent contingent in this administration.
Morale amongst our agents and officers has increased exponentially since the signing of the orders. The biggest change was the erasing of the Obama administration's hierarchy of priorities, which forced agents to concentrate on deporting gang members and other violent and serious criminals and mostly leave everyone else alone. Officials in Washington said that shift and the new enthusiasm that's come with it seems to have encouraged pro-Trump political comments and banter that struck officials as brazen or gung-ho, like remarks about their jobs being fun. Those who take a less of a hard line on unauthorized immigrants feel silenced, the official said. And, you know, if you're one of those a-holes who contend that, well, they're illegal, the law is the law, you should also know that it's civil crime when you come in here without documentation, as opposed to, you know, basically like a traffic ticket. But you should also be aware that unless ICE is going to get a huge bump in their budget, understand that when they go after the moms, when they go after the law-abiding citizens but for a ticket that they got, when they go after these people, they're not going after those violent criminals. And now they don't have to. When they see two potential people they can go after, they're going to go after the one who's going to represent the least amount of threat to them and the most amount of threat to the community.
And also, and I'm not, of course, this isn't all ICE agents, but there are stories relating to this as well. I mean, who are the types of people that could pay a bribe to an ICE agent, as an example, to have them look the other way to begin with?
Bystanders are now being taken in if they're suspected to be undocumented, even if they've committed no crime, known within the agency as collateral arrests. While these arrests occurred under the Obama administration, they were officially discouraged, to the frustration of many agents. Which part of illegal don't people understand? An agent in Arizona asked. Oh, my God. On Thursday, L.A. basically asked ICE agents to stop referring to themselves as police because when they knock on the door and they say it's the police, now anybody who's undocumented is not going to open the door. This is the problem. And here's a heartwarming tale of one of those people who've committed a felony getting arrested in West Frankfort, Illinois. This is also from the Times. A guy named Juan Carlos Hernandez Pacheco. He's been the manager of La Fiesta. It's a Mexican restaurant. This is a city of 8,000 people. He's been the manager there for 10 years. People around the town tell stories about Mr. Hernandez. Like when the fire department was battling a two-alarm blaze, he showed up with meals for the firefighters. How he hosted a law enforcement appreciation day at the restaurant last summer. How he took part in about every community committee or charity effort, the Rotary Club, cancer fundraisers, cleanup days, scholarships for the high school sports team. He's 38 years old. In 2007, he had a DUI conviction. 2 DUI convictions in 2007. 38 years old, on February 9th, he was arrested by federal immigration agents near his home, taken to a detention facility in Missouri. He's still in custody, but don't say where or what for. He has 3 kids. The oldest is 6. A wife who is an American citizen as of late last year. Friends of his say he crossed into the United States from Mexico in the late 90s and started but never completed his effort to legalize his status. Tom Jordan, the mayor of West Frankfort, wrote that Mr. Hernandez was a great asset to the city who doesn't ask for anything in return. The fire chief described him as a man of great character. Lori Barron from Lori's Hair Affairs, a beauty salon. I think people need to do things the right way, follow the rules, and obey the laws, and I firmly believe in that. But in the case of Carlos, I think he may have done more for the people here than this place has ever given him. I think it's absolutely terrible he could be taken away. Richard Goldlich, athletic director at the Frankfort Community High School, wrote, "As a grandson of immigrants, I'm all for immigration reform. But this time you've arrested a good man that should be as a role model for other immigrants. This county backed Donald Trump with 70% of the vote. I knew he was Mexican, but he's just been here for so long, he's just one of us," said Deborah Johnson, a resident. She said she saw a distinction between people who come over and use the system and people who actually come and help. Now, we know that undocumented immigrants pay more into the system than they take out. I mean, maybe if enough people get deported that Donald Trump supporters know, maybe there'll be a change. But this is going to increase. And people at one point are going to have to, I don't know, there's going to have to end up being, and there's already obviously a lot of organizations that are starting to work with this, but it's going to become incumbent upon more and more people who are not involved in this issue to help people like this. There are people who are people are trying to now sneak into Canada from here. It's insane. Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Subscribe.